Welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, a conversation through the careers of writer Simon Furman and artist Andrew Wildman. Recollections and revelations about the highs and the lows as creatives in comics, books, games, film and TV.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 38 of The Rest is Giant Robots. I'm Simon Furman.
And I'm Andrew Wildman.
And here we are back on some kind of schedule,
We'll kind of schedule.
we'll keep it going for as long as we can, but at least Andrew's back in his office. I'm still in mine because I haven't been anywhere. But hopefully we should get a little more regular output going again now as we forge onwards towards episode 40. Blimey.
Yeah. Do you like my toy shelves that I put up yesterday?
Very good. Yeah, I should have mine sort of on display as well. I've got a great row of Astrobots and Grimlocks and Death's Heads.
I'm sure you have. Yeah.
I've got a whole sort of Death's Head toy case because there's the little Hero Clicks figure they did of him. Then they did a small action figure of him, and then recently they did that San Diego Comic-Con full-size figure of him, or not full-size, but large size.
Yeah.
So it's growing my little Death's Head toy lineup, and I don't really go for toys, action figures very much, and they're murder to dust. And this assumes I ever do any dusting.
Exactly.
But they are pretty murder to dust. And so, I mean, I've only got a few, but sometimes people have given me sort of figures that kind of relate to my work. So I have a Razor Beast and a Bludgeon and a G-Axis. So some of them I often get just given, which is really nice. And those I keep and display always.
Yeah, I think it's not. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I've got toys and figures and whatever, but I don't really care about them that much. But I thought it's nice to have something of things you've worked on, and obviously for you that involves a hell of a lot of characters, But
yeah, quite a few. And I mean, obviously, as we were just saying, about Death's Head, when you've had a hand in the creation of a character. And it then becomes a toy. It sort of feels, wow, how cool is that? Recently
that is the Redbeard from Mad Hatter Chronicles.
Oh yes, yeah, I've got a few Mad Hatter toys kicking around.
Yeah, because I did production design on that, but the characters were pretty much all already created. I did create some, but that one was actually turned into a toy, so that's kind of fun.
yeah, some of the characters I kind of originated as concepts are toys, Captain Lightning and a few others.
Yeah, brilliant.
So yeah, no, it is. It's sort of gratifying that it works that way sometimes, and you end up with a little figure of a character that popped out your head.
Yeah, there you go. Let's be grateful there aren't little figures of many other things that have popped out of your head.
Yeah, and let's hope
nightmares come to life.
Yeah, let's hope in the future if we push ahead with some work on the engine, we could even get some engine action figures, which would be very cool.
I think it would be very cool. And in these days of, hey, this is going to throw a challenge out to somebody. In these days of 3D printing, if we get a CG model, then you can just get it printed up. My brother's got one of them crazy printers. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, it was like that amazing Death's Head sculpt that somebody gave me at London Film and Comic-Con last year. Just you kind of look at the quality of it and you just have to go, wow, look at what they can do now, the detail. It had everything, the weaponry, the belt buckles, the little sort of loincloth thing that hangs sort of down. It's just amazing, just how good 3D printing is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, fabulous. Good. So this episode, unless I'm very much mistaken, we're doing Q&A.
We are, yeah. We've got a few questions come in from from our listeners, and
Mm,
we are always welcome and up for more questions. Please do keep them coming
mm.
because apart from anything else, we get an episode out of it generally if we get enough. So
Yeah, they're providing us free content,
yes,
but then
so please,
they're having the joy of having their question answered, so that's
yeah,
good.
absolutely. And if there's a burning question within reason you'd like to ask us, do definitely send it in to either the Patreon site or just our social medias.
Yeah, I'll just email it in to wildfurproductions@gmail.com.
Indeed. So yes, so do you, you've kindly sent me these in note form.
Yes, I yeah, okay.
So shall we jump
In any
in?
kind of order, yeah, okay. So there's one for
Well,
me there that we can get out of
yeah.
the way quite
Well,
quickly.
let's get this one. Okay, so this is from Playback. Thank you for writing in. And obviously you're a regular listener, and we've had questions from Playback before.
And
Thank
there's
you
more
for
after this as well from
yes, indeed. So you there is almost no limit to how many questions you can throw into at the little pot, if you like, and we'll get to some or all of them. So
Mm.
Playback. Did I hear Andrew refer to experience of playing with a band when discussing challenges of the live pod?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, you probably did. I can't remember what exactly was said, but I guess I was probably talking about some of the kind of technical glitches that can happen when we did the where was the TIFF
TF.
Nation?
Well, we tried to do a record at London Film and Comic Con, and that didn't pan
Oh,
out.
right. Okay, yeah.
But the one at TF Nation was properly set up, and they were recording the stuff,
Yeah.
rather than just through the mic, the kind of stage mics.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I've got lots of experience with that because I've played in bands, I don't know, ever since I left college, pretty much. Well, I played in a band at college and did a couple of live gigs. Well, a few live gigs actually. And then on and off, I've played in bands over the years since then as a drummer. Um, yes, I'm very well aware of all the kind of technical stuff that has to happen and what can go wrong, and also just being used to kind of being up on stage because a lot of people are not comfortable with it. I mean, you're comfortable with it. You've done a load of
Mm,
that kind of stuff, not in a band, but just getting up and talking, and me too. So, you know, and I think if anything else, it makes it easier for when anything does go wrong in inverted commas. You know, when
mm.
you've used to stage experience, you just think whatever. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's on the same side. Nobody really cares as long as we get something out of it. You know.
It,
Um,
it's it's a funny thing. I'm quite comfortable on stage, and if that is being filmed, no problem.
yeah,
But put me down in a chair in front of a camera, and suddenly it's like, oh, where do I look? And what do I, and oh, I'm stumbling over my words here. And just recently, um, Titan Titan Comics asked me to do a little two camera, you know, I suppose for social media chat about Return to and Escape from Skull Island.
oh yeah,
Honestly, it took me about four goes with my poor wife holding the camera on me, just to sort of not just. I mean, it was only about six sentences really, and a bit of show and tell. Could I get it right? No, no,
yeah.
no.
I know it's weird, isn't it? Kind of, yeah, not necessarily even learning lines, but just being precise about what you want to say, and then
Hmm.
and then saying, I did I applied to be on a TV show recently. And apart from filling in all the application forms, you had to do a 1 minute video. And there's certain things that they want you to say. And a minute is, for me, is not very long. I mean, I could say an awful lot.
Yeah.
But so I kind of recorded it. They just said, just do it on your phone. So I did it on my
Hmm.
phone. And it was coming out at like 2.5 minutes. It's like, well, how can I be any more concise? I did it over and over and over and over again, and managed to kind of punch it well within a minute. So it was all right. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a funny old thing to do.
it is. And band-wise, you were a drummer, weren't you, or are a drummer?
Yeah, yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, I've played in function bands and all that kind of thing, but I played in like well, I played. early on with somebody that I knew from childhood who I lost contact with and then got in touch with like after I finished at art college, and we put a band together um, in various forms, which eventually I left. We recorded an EP at Linford Manor Studios in Milton Keynes, which is incredible. I mean, an amazing studio, big old manor house with,
Mm,
huge mixing desks and everything. So we recorded an EP there, and then um, Rob, the guy who was kind of the songwriter in the band, he then went on to develop what the band was in eventually into a band called Touchstone, and they've got official releases out there. Not the Canadian band Touchstone, but the UK band,
mm,
and they were very well thought of in the whole kind of prog rock world. He then left that and set up another band called Cairo, which is still around, so they're worth checking out.
mm.
I recorded a couple of CD albums with a band called Cooper Black,
Yep.
which is kind of a folk. It was originally a folk band, but it kind of broadened out. Um, we've got a couple of CDs. You can hear them on like Spotify and all those kind of places. They called Cooper Black. So that was great. But then we did a quite a big gig in a theatre a few years ago, and that was pretty much it for me. I just got so much work in TV, I
Mm,
couldn't do it anymore. So it was a shame. But I have played a handful of times since, but not many.
yeah.
But I love it. I love just playing live gigs. I don't like recording so much. It's just tedious, and it's hard to get the energy up just to kind of instill it with some enthusiasm because it's so tedious. um, but yeah, and I still kind of love music. The music for the podcast, I put that together.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I plan to do more of that. So
Yeah,
yeah, so it's good. Yeah.
when we were doing To the Death, we were contacted by a composer musician called Richard Chance, who put together just sort of volunteered to do a bit of theme music for the webcomic version of it. And he
Mm,
was such a nice chap, but he took on board, all my sort of a bit half-assed suggestions because I'm not, great when it comes to music, but I kind of knew I wanted a slightly mechanical Depeche Mode sort of sort of ground to the
yeah,
music. And so I sent him, links to a couple of tracks by them that were sort of had that nice sort of kind of almost like hammer clanking on metal sound in the
yeah,
background. And he was
yeah.
great. I mean, he kind of used those, but he got the idea of what I was looking for and came up with this amazing bit of music for which of course we still have, which is nice to have your own bit of theme music.
Yeah, very much so. Where is that? Is that anywhere that anybody can
I,
listen
I
to?
suppose if the web episodes are still available, and I don't know whether that is. If not, I'll have to. I must have them all archived, so I'll
Hmm.
play it live over one of our next podcasts.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could get it up somewhere online, so and then
Hmm,
stick a link to it. If you
yeah,
you can send that to me if you like, and I'll
I mean, maybe we
we'll stick it
could.
on YouTube.
Yes, that's true. Maybe did the episodes ever get onto YouTube? I don't know. If not, it'd be great to get them out there because obviously the print series is all done, so it's not a kind
Yeah,
of a sort of in competition to that. But yes, I will see if I can de-archive some of that.
yeah, and even just the audio, we could stick that up on
Hmm,
Patreon.
yeah, must have that somewhere. So yeah, I'll have a look into it.
I found the audio that Ed Cookson did for the engine.
Oh, have you?
Do you remember that little kind of intro
Yeah,
music?
I
I found
do.
that. I'll stick that up as
Oh,
well.
do yeah. Yeah, we've got various bits of theme music going on here, haven't we? Between
In fact, we'll put together a little collection of all
yeah,
three of them,
that's
and
right.
I'll put them up on Patreon and let people know when it comes out, and you can have a listen to that. Yeah,
I'll have to have a word with Richard and see if he'll do me a little sort of 5 points gyre kind of creepy music or something at some point.
Yeah, very good.
Yes,
Good.
right.
Well, that's one question.
Yeah, see,
Doing well, aren't we?
this is the trouble. We never get through as many of these as we think. But do you want to hit me with the next one?
I'll hit the next one. So this is from Anthony Baker. Thank you, Anthony. So he says, another great episode. I don't know which episode that was, but thank you anyway. And of course, they're all great. I mean,
Yes.
goes without saying, doesn't it? It has made me curious. So I have a question for both Simon and Andrew for the next Q&A episode, and here we are. When writing and or drawing your own self-created characters, do you have any thoughts on the possible casting of specific characters who could play them in either live action or animated movies or TV series? For example, if the MCU were ever to feature Death's Head, whose voice would you hear in your head while writing dialogue?
Yeah, I
That's for
mean
you.
it is a good question. I mean, to answer it the other way round, when I'm writing, say, Transformers, I very much have the cartoon voices in my head.
Mm,
Even though we're doing the comics and it's not quite the same, it's the cartoon animated movie voices I default to for those. So, I'm very much in that. Just recently I was writing some Grimlock dialogue for a game, and it's not my Grimlock. It's very much the Greg Berger,
yeah,
sort of classic Grimlock
of
in,
course.
that comes out onto the page.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
what
no,
about so he's saying your own self-created
yeah.
characters.
So that's that way round. But I
Sorry.
don't I do it less when I'm starting from scratch with a new character. I mean, I try and, give them a speech pattern, if you like. Like in the central character in 5 Points and the Gyre is Warren Mackey, this detective.
Mm,
And a big deal is made out of the fact that he's had a proper education. He's, not just your sort of common or garden copper. He's educated, and it's a source of needle with some of his colleagues that he's
right.
maybe a little, sort of, not that he tries to be, but a little more sort of cerebral, if you like. So when I was writing him, I just had in my mind an educated, even though he's American, British voice, not so
Mm,
many contractions, not so much slang. And so I don't think it's a specific voice, but a type of voice I always
mm,
want picture to fit the character.
yeah. And any particular actor, even if it's not their voice, do you kind of think, oh, this kind of actor? Because they do that with I mean, I've had that before when I've drawn stuff for other people. They say, they'd say
Mm.
who they who they imagine the character to be. It gives you some idea of what they look like. But
Yeah, I mean, say with Death's Head, I mean, for a start, I don't think he talks like an actor would. I think he sounds mechanical, so
yeah,
there would have to be a heavy sort of robotization of the actor's voice, I think.
yeah,
And strangely, his clipped way of talking always makes me feel, even though he's got no nationality, that he's Slavic, so sort of
okay,
Russian, sort of Eastern European. So I think if you could find that perfect kind of slightly Eastern European actor and roboticize it, I mean, I think, who can you say? I mean, I think someone like Mads Mikkelsen would do a really good Death's Head, I
mm,
think, or oh God, what's his name? The one who was in the David Fincher assassin film, Fassbender.
yeah, Mike Fassbender, yeah,
I think he, even though it's not Slavic, yeah, I think he would have a great kind of clipped delivery necessary for Death's Head.
yeah. That Eastern European thing's interesting. I think when people read a desk who are listening to this, when they read anything with Death's Head in next, they're going to be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, wow, and it will add a whole new dimension to hear it with a
Yeah,
Slavic kind of
Slavic
tinge to it.
robotic accent.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know is the answer, but you know, I would probably, if somebody said cast him, I would find somebody whose natural speaking voice was Eastern European and then
Mm.
roboticize it.
Yeah,
And just,
nice.
and
What about Death's Head? I mean, not Death's Head. What about to the Death? Is that who would you cast?
oh, that's a good one. I mean, for Dryargin, funnily enough, it's another one where he could easily have a sort of, it's probably my Polish heritage
Yeah.
coming through in my characters. Um, I don't know. I think, I think sort of without the Aussie accent, something like a Mel Gibson, in
Mm.
terms of, his delivery and things, but obviously without the Aussie accent. So,
All
no,
the personality baggage.
yes, well, yes, sort of, this is the trouble these days. You have to sometimes distance it, don't you? But
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, no, I mean, but really with him, I didn't. I didn't sort of say to Jeff, he's a bit like Steve McQueen or something. I kind of
Mm.
think it's limiting in a way for the artist. I'd rather
Mm.
just describe them and let the artist do what they will without sort of attaching a kind of familiar face.
Yeah.
Because I always feel you'll see that eventually, and people will only ever see that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean it yeah. Although it does happen, people do that.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, even in storyboarding, they very often when I'm boarding, they haven't cast anybody
Mm,
in the role yet. But I very often say to the director, "Yeah, but ideally, who would that be?" So it's just so I can get a sense of maybe how they
yes.
move, what their body size, all that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I don't have that much creator, creating our own product, but the two people in well in Horizon and in Oxygen were real people anyway. So Oxygen, big spoiler, not it's me.
Yeah.
Um, and Horizon was very much absolutely based on a young lady that I was working with when I was working at a games company in Guildford at the time that I was beginning to think about what would eventually become Horizon.
Mm,
Her name is Jo Davis. And she was perfect. I mean, I've said this before. I just said to her one day, I'm doing this graphic novel, and you'd be great reference for the character. Just everything about her was right.
mm.
Um, and so I asked her to dress up, which sounds dodgy, but no, I just said to her one day, I described the character, I described the scenario, and said to her, "Can you come in one day this week dressed in what you think that character would wear?" Which she
Mm.
did, and that was Alice Ann right in front of me. I mean,
Yeah.
she nailed it for me. Joe absolutely nailed it for me, and and
Yeah.
there we go.
You know, it's funny. I mean, I can't say a character like Verity in Transformers Infiltration. That character was not based on anyone, but I think the character, the way EJ drew it, spoke to people. And, Ali Smearman, who's the Dutch Transformers fan, she named us, she basically would sometimes kind of cosplay as
Yes, she did.
Verity. And I
Yeah.
thought that's really nice, that something about that character really struck a chord. And I'm sure it's more EJ's visuals than anything else.
Hmm.
But I generally don't kind of start with an actor or actress in mind. And what I do find is sometimes I see myself in the words that are coming out of the characters' mouths.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they
Totally.
start to talk like me a bit sometimes, with less umming and erring.
Yeah, you could write all those in, but that get
Yeah.
really tedious, wouldn't
But
it? Good. Shall we move on to another one? Thank you
y-
for that, Anthony. It was a good
yep.
question and good fun to answer. Right.
So, okay, shall we go to Django Unfettered? What a great name. Andrew, I was wondering if you felt that being a storyboard artist would make you a better comic book artist, or if being a comic book artist helped you become a better storyboard artist. I will read on in a bit, but do you
Mm.
want to answer that bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I I've always been interested in both things, and I ended up being a comic book artist before I was a storyboard artist. But there is a lot of cross traffic within, between those two industries where, and because I've worked in both, when I've been working with storyboard artists, a lot of them have said to me, "Oh, I'd love to do comics. Like, how do I get into that, etc." And then like the other way around. Um, for me, they've kind of informed each other. One of the first things I noticed when I started to become a storyboard artist and really had to find a way of having a crash course in storytelling in terms of cinema. I mean, I kind of know a lot of it, but just the technical aspects of storyboarding in terms of shots and how they work and camera and all that kind of thing. Um, then informed an awful lot about how I drew comics. Um, because there are so many things that so many there are cinematic rules that people break when they do comics, which is absolutely fine because you can do what you like in comics. But once you've done storyboards and you understand cinema and camera and how cuts work, it's actually quite can be quite limiting then when you go back to comics because it's like you do things the way you would have done them before, or you see stuff that other people have done, you just think that doesn't work visually, that just doesn't cut together properly. Why are you doing
Mm,
that? Um, so it kind of informed it that way round. In terms of comics informing storyboards, obviously the drawing techniques is a huge advantage,
mm,
um, because with comics, you have to draw really fast. As I would say to people at conventions who say to me, "What do I have to do to become a comic book artist?" And I
mhm.
said, "Well, the first thing is you need to be able to draw anything from any angle.
Yeah,
That's people, cars, furniture, buildings." Trees, whatever, from any angle, just go.
yeah, yeah.
Which normally puts them off. But it's the same as storyboarding because you have to, turn things out pretty rapidly.
Mm,
Um, but I think having done comics, it does help you develop shorthand while drawing storyboards. So they kind of inform each other, but they are very, very related because essentially you're communicating, narrative visually, um, in sometimes a very economical way.
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Um,
I know Jeff found it easy to sort of go from um, comics to advertising, story, animatics, and storyboarding.
yeah.
And I think it kind of, as you say, because he was from that school of you might have to draw anything and sometimes mundane
Mm,
things. For advertising, he was great. He had that dynamism, but when it came to drawing practical product, if you like, into the animatics, he was great at it.
yeah. Yeah, certainly with that kind of thing. With storyboards for for film and TV, where it's narrative rather than advertising, it kind of had there are different things that are required because you're getting across the story and the flow of the action and the kind of interaction between characters and all that kind of thing. Um, and and it's in comics generally you don't have a lot of that. You do have a lot of action,
Mm.
um, but in storyboard sometimes you have to draw the quiet scenes or the not very often, but sometimes there'll be a specific shot reason why you have to do that, even though what's actually happening is it's just dialogue between two
Yeah.
characters. You'll have to, storyboard it because maybe there's a particular angle or there needs to be some visual effects in the background. So whatever. So you have to storyboard that.
Mm.
So keeping that interesting is well, again, you don't have to. You can take a lot of you can be very minimal with some storyboarding because it just has to communicate to the director and the crew. Whereas when you're drawing comics, it's got to communicate to its whole audience.
Yeah.
So you can be very rough with some storyboards, and very often there's not the time to make them pretty. The stuff I'm doing on Luther is, I think, is the best boarding I've ever done for many reasons. I can't show any of it, obviously,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
they are a very similar and yet at the same time different discipline.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny from the writing side, I found when I made the sort of transition to screen and people were going to be speaking my dialogue, I had
Mm,
to loosen it up because in comics, you're being quite concise and exact because you don't want reams and reams of dialogue covering up the art particularly.
mm,
So, it's not a kind of natural speak. When you read it out loud, it doesn't read like conversation.
mm,
And so when I moved to screen work, whether it was TV animation or the movie writing, I found I'd had to do a lot of reading it out loud to myself just to make sure it sounded not that sort of clipped comic speak.
yeah, yeah, very much so. Because if it's going to be spoken, it's got to sound very naturalistic, isn't
Mm.
it? Whereas comics, you don't. I mean, some writers do make it sound very, read very naturally, but hearing something and reading something is slightly different. I
Yeah.
think there's an
And
interesting point at the end of Django's.
let me just read the rest of it now. I ask because Phil Norwood was a movie storyboard artist before he did the pencils for the original Aliens versus Predator for Dark Horse. I remember when first reading AVP that it felt so cinematic, and not just because they're movie properties. It was years later that I found out he was an action movie storyboard artist prior to AVP.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why that would happen because if you're storyboarding for film, especially action stuff, people are used to they're used to seeing the way that sort of action stuff on screen has so much energy and it has to flow and it flows in certain directions and there are certain camera angles that historically just work within cinema to get that sort of narrative across and get the flow across. And comic book artists are not limited by that, but I think when you have that understanding of what the lens can do and you put that on paper like a comic book, it still works. It still works because the viewer's eye, who's seen many action movies and TV shows, understand that language. So when you do that in a comic, then it still very much does work. A lot of comic book artists have a very cinematic eye anyway, because they're very influenced by film and TV. So they will they will do some of that, but they don't necessarily understand why it's like that. So when you're
Yeah.
a storyboard artist and you work within, screen, um, you understand why that works, and so you can use it with that, not backed up with that knowledge. So I would imagine that that's what Phil did when you know.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I would say working on the screen has really helped my dialogue, working for the screen, just because I think some of the dialogue in Five Points and the Gyre feels the most naturalistic I've ever written.
Hmm.
It really feels like the way people speak instead of just what you want them to say, which is
Yeah,
always the sort of trap you can fall into.
yeah, yeah, very much so.
Right, hit
Okay.
us with another question.
Yeah, so I want to Russ, good long
Rusty,
time listener and good friend of the podcast
Rushy,
and
yeah.
of comics. Um, so Russ, two questions, one for Simon and one for myself. So for Simon, do you have to hold yourself back ever from being overly descriptive in a script and let an artist do what they do? Can that be frustrating if you have a particular vision for a panel or page, but it isn't essential to the story to be as precise as you'd like to be?
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, generally, I try to leave as much as possible to the artist,
Yeah.
but say with Five Points or with the Gyre, where I'm describing something I've done research for. And okay, I can send that research on to Martin, but there's a certain amount of I will go into more depth just to say it needs to be this kind of backdrop. It needs to be that kind of um, I just sort of describe more of the trappings of the time because also we're
Mm,
dealing with an era as well as a place. So in this case, in the case of 5 Points in the Gyre, sometimes I go into more detail, sometimes I go into virtually no detail. I'll tend to do my, if you like, establishing shot, which can be
mm,
quite detailed. We do a lot of semi kind of design feature pages in 5 Points and the Gyre. And, there's one where in each one there's been a kind of police notice board where they've pinned up the crime scene photos and
yeah,
the map of the area, and there's XYZ up there. So that tends to be almost like a page of description just to
yeah,
be clear about what's up there. And sometimes you're describing small things on the notice board. And again, you can supply reference, but you've got to imagine the notice board the way it's been laid out as well and say to
yeah,
Martin, can we have suspect A down that side, suspect B down that side? So yeah,
yeah,
it depends. It depends very much on what you're describing. And, but after a while, once, and especially with the second Warren Mackey one, uh, because all the characters or larger number of the characters had already been designed, there was no need to say anything more than here's Warren Mackey, his wife
mm,
Asefi, here's,
mm,
and so on and so on. So it gets easier, and certainly with To the Death, I would say my scene and description was minimal, minimal, minimal in that.
mm. I guess when you get to a point where it's like any creative, sort of partnership or collaboration, when you understand the other person and what they do, then you don't have to describe so much because you're thinking, I pretty much know what they're going to do with this, and if they surprise me, I know it's going to be great anyway.
Mm,
I mean, I'm sure there will be times, as there was in the back in history, where
yeah.
I've done stuff that then pulled me up on. But I guess we were younger then, and I was kind of learning. But
Mm,
now, I mean, unless you've got something specific in mind, which is what Russ was kind of,
yeah.
alluding to. But then,
I,
if it's
I mean,
very specific, like you say, with a notice board, you describe it. Don't you?
it helps now that we're all so in touch. Even if you're working with an artist in America or vice versa, you know, it's very easy to jump on a call and talk
Yeah,
something through, whereas that never used to be the case. We would send our plots in to Marvel US, and unless I happen to be working with you or Jeff, it
yeah.
was somewhat into the unknown after that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess so. Yeah, good. What was the bit of Russ had a bit for me there, didn't he?
He
What was
did,
that?
yes. Let me just pull that up uh, from Andrew. Uh, and by extension, Simon. Andrew, what do you look for in a script from a writer? Is there a point for you personally where a writer can go too far? For example, how would you feel working from an Alan Moore style script where he takes 3 pages to describe a single panel? Would that be too prescriptive? Alternatively, I know of some writers who would describe an entire 22-page comic in a single page of text. Would that be too far in the opposite direction?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the extremes are always not necessarily desirable. If you've got somebody spend 3 pages describing one panel, it'd be like, really?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, who's got that amount of time? Crikey. I don't mind. I mean, I've worked with, many different writers, and they do have different ways of doing it. But I think your job as an artist is, yeah, okay, you can be annoyed by how that's gone, and if there isn't a lot of description, like you said, Simon, you can always get in touch and say,
Hmm.
can you just say a bit more about that, please?
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but I mean, we in a previous episode we described the difference between the kind of UK script, writing style, and then, well, it wasn't even UK and U. The difference between UK and US. It was very much the difference between Marvel and everybody else. So even DC used to do full script, didn't they? And then
mm,
Marvel do plot style, which is far less description to
yeah.
give the artist more free reign. And both work perfectly well. I mean, I have had examples where writers have written, you know, yes, 120 horses come over the brow of the hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
I even had, and there was one artist, which wouldn't bother me so much now. One writer who wanted the specific night sky from a specific part of the world to be shown.
Wow. Okay.
I think he was just being an absolute arse, to be honest. I think he was just testing my resolve because I
Yes.
think my answer to that was like, no.
No.
Is there a
Uh,
reason why?
yes. Is it does the story depend on that,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there are examples where there's that thing in Titanic, isn't there, where people have criticized Titanic for many reasons.
Mm,
Classic bit of cinema that it is now, but where I can't remember now, Jack and what's the girl's name? I can't remember.
Rose.
Jack and Rose,
Ro
that's right. Where Rose is on the floating door, and
mm,
she's kind of having a last kind of bit of conversation with Jack, and apparently someone criticised because in the upshots where that is where the Titanic sank, that's night sky. That's not, you wouldn't under any circumstances see that constellation.
no. Oh, God, wow.
Oh well, that's
Okay.
ruined it for me then.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I definitely noticed that above everything else that was, going on at that point. So I saw a very funny little cartoon just surface, so to speak. It's like the Titanic going down, and the people are in the water, and the people in the water are all holding up camera phones recording it, which I just thought was very funny.
Yeah, what a different world we live in. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, yes, I mean, I would say also in answer to that question, there is no right way or wrong way to write a script, but for your own sanity as a writer, you need to be economical and fast, because
Hmm.
otherwise your output slows down to such a degree that you just couldn't do a couple of monthly comics because you're spending so much time on one panel.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, shall we just sort of wrap up from here?
yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think that's pretty much that's covered all the questions we have. I don't think we missed anything out. There's some
no,
good stuff
I
to
mean,
talk about.
as usual, 3 or 4 questions seems to fill an episode. So, but do keep them coming. And if we didn't get to your question, we will next time. I
Yeah,
promise you that.
we might.
Yes, we'll try.
Let's do our
We'll
best.
start with yours next time.
Yeah, good. Okay, so next one will be 39, won't it? Oh, that's
It
right,
will be
isn't it?
39, yes. And we were thinking we might do a little movie roundup, as we haven't done one of those for a while.
Yeah, we've seen a few movies since the last one we did, so it'd be nice to just air our views of some of those.
Yes,
Fabulous.
indeed.
Good. All
Well,
right. Well,
thanks.
till next time, Simon.
Yep. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Rest is Giant Robots. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing for more and maybe share with like-minded friends. This has been a Wildfur production.